Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Connor, and today we're going to be doing an individual book review for Anxious People by Fredrik Backman. If you guys don't know, Fredrik Backman is one of my favorite current still writing novelists, and I've read quite a few books by him. I have done reviews for a bunch, so I'll leave them up in the card symbol as a playlist, and you can check them out. But today we're talking about Anxious People, which is a standalone adult fiction book. At the beginning of the book, we're following a bank robber who is trying to rob a bank for the first time ever. The robbery goes way wrong. While fleeing the scene, the bank robber ends up going into an apartment which is actually being toured for potential sale and ends up taking people hostage. During the course of the story, you learn a lot more about this bank robber. You learn about the different hostages, what makes them anxious people, what makes them tick. We learn a lot more about the potential connections between the different people that are in the situation, as well as we follow the people as they make more connections between themselves. The story is told in multiple points of view as well as in multiple formats. Some of the sections are told just with the different characters, but some of them are also told in the form of interviews between the different hostages as well as the police officers that are investigating this hostage bank robbery situation. Before I get started with my pros and cons, I'll run through all the different characters just so you have an idea of who they are going in. First up is the bank robber who is trying to rob a bank for the first time ever. Obviously, robbing a bank is a very stressful situation, so all of that is weighing on the bank robber's head, as well as just this whole situation that was unforeseen. Who thinks that they're gonna rob a bank and then takes hostages at an apartment that's like across the street? And basically this whole situation is just very overwhelming. Quick aside, we also follow the two officers that are investigating the case. There's one that's a bit older, there's one that's a bit younger, and they have very different approaches to trying to solve what's happening and where the bank robber is. We have the real estate agent who is trying to sell the apartment. We have a woman named Zara. She's a very wealthy, very acerbic woman. She's very prickly. She is not very nice to people. During the book, you follow some of her past, and she does see a therapist, so the therapist pops in with her, but she is just very snooty, really. Very unlikable. Then we have the couple, Annalena and Roger. They've been married for a long time. They're a bit of an older couple. They're touring this apartment together, and it just doesn't seem like they have very much in common anymore. So that is weighing on their relationship. So you get to see how the stress of being held hostage affects all of that. There's also a young couple that's looking at the apartment. They are a young lesbian couple, Julia and Ro. They also have very different approaches to life, which is interesting to see. They're actually expecting their first child, and so that's causing a lot of anxiety because, you know, that's coming up and that changes your life in all sorts of ways. There's an older woman named Estelle who's looking at the apartment for her granddaughter or daughter or something like that. She's waiting for her husband to show up when the hostage situation starts, but she's just a super sweetheart and is very willing to help in whatever way. And then there's also a rabbit. I'll let you figure that out for yourself. This book has a lot of potential triggers for people, so if you have triggers, I suggest trying to look them up before jumping in if that's going to affect your reading experience. There's things like depression and suicide and all of that stuff, so go ahead and look up the trigger warnings if you are triggered by something, because all of these people are very anxious, and anxious people tend to have other things going on in their lives, mental health wise and everything like that. So know that before going in. As usual with my book reviews, I'm going to go through my pros, go through my cons, give you my rating, and be done. My first pro for this book is that I really enjoyed learning about all of these different characters and seeing how their storylines would either connect or had been connected in the past. It reminded me a bit of those movies that are similarly structured. Love Actually, and I think there's a Valentine's Day one that is structured like this. When I read the synopsis, that's kind of what I was expecting, so I was glad to see all of these connections start forming as I was reading the novel. So again, it was fun to see how everyone interrelated or how their lives kind of went past each other. Because I have anxiety myself, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel reading this book with all of these very anxious people and having to like take on their anxieties and experience their anxieties on top of my own anxieties. Does that make sense? So at first I wasn't sure how that was going to go, and I didn't really get connected with a ton of the characters, but as I was reading it, I got more and more invested in what was going on. Once these characters start to confront what is causing their anxiety or what is causing the problems in their lives, that's when you start to feel connected with the characters and start to get invested in what's going on. So it took a bit for me to get there, but eventually I did start getting invested in these different characters' lives and how they would connect with each other. Pretty standard for me when reading a Fredrik Backman book is that I do enjoy the writing style. I think Fredrik Backman has a very distinctive writing style. Like, I can tell when something is written by him. Specifically in this book, I really enjoyed the use of the word Stockholm in the book. It is used by different people in so many different ways, but it all made sense. Some people use it as a term for the LGBT plus community. Some people use it as an insult. Some people just use it as the actual place. And some people even use it as a way of describing the like mentality and way of thinking of certain people. So I definitely think it's something that people will be able to relate to because people describe people from big cities in that way. And I feel like that was well done in here as well. So his writing in general is just one that I really enjoy. And there's one scene in particular that got me a little bit teary-eyed. I won't spoil it, but that one I was like, I really enjoyed the characterizations in here as well. It really showcased that in our modern times or whatever, people are really quick to be defensive because people are also really quick to be offensive. Like, people will automatically start being offensive to you, and then people get defensive, and then it causes all sorts of miscommunications because people aren't respecting one another. So I really enjoyed that in here as well. And my last pro before I jump into cons is that I really enjoyed the role that the bridge of this town plays in this. I can't remember what town this is in. The bridge is almost like its own character. It affects all of these different people's lives differently, and I really enjoyed that. I thought that that was really well done. As for cons, I had a couple. My biggest one is that the writing style is very similar to his other books, but for some reason in this one it felt like there was a wall in between the characters and the reader. The narration of the story talks about, you should know this, or you would do that, or you would do these things, and so it made me really cognizant of me being the one sitting here reading the story instead of me diving into the story and experiencing it from within. Does that even make any sense? When the narrator talks to a reader directly, it, to me, makes me feel like there is a barrier between you and the story, and so that was preventing me from getting fully invested in this story. I mean, I did get invested in the characters, but there was always a separation, which I guess also helped with the fact that all of these people have problems and anxieties of their own, so I didn't have to fully take them on, but then I didn't fully jump in, like I said. With some of his other books, I don't feel like that barrier was there. I felt like with Beartown, I was experiencing all of these things with these characters. In Every Morning, And Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer, it's the same way. I was just jumping right in and experiencing all of these feelings with these characters. Same thing with My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry, or in the UK it's called My Grandmother Sends Her Regards and Apologies or something like that. All of those books I immediately had my heart in, and this one, it didn't happen because of that barrier of talking directly at me while reading. Hopefully that made sense and you can understand what I'm saying. And my other con for this one is that this book is very repetitive. I know in my review of Beartown, I say that Fredrik Backman uses repetition in a really good way in that book. I don't feel like it was used as well in this. The information that we get about the different characters, we get so many times from the other characters. So one character will find out a piece of information about Zara, and then another character will find out that same information about Zara, and then another character will learn that same information about Zara. So it was just very repetitive, and I felt like it slowed down the pacing of this book because we already knew that information. So I didn't need to experience getting that information with every single character. If I got it once, I'm good to go. Let's keep the plot moving. But in here, that happens a lot because all of these different characters are having individual moments with the other hostages and the bank robber. So it's just a lot of repeating over and over again. And those two cons really did end up affecting my reading experience, but first I have one neutral. My one neutral for this book is that we do get a lot of wrapping up in this book, and I know that some people really hate open endings, some people love everything to be wrapped up. This one was almost extra wrapping. It got wrapped up and then it kept getting wrapped up. Every character, you know exactly where they are at the end of the book in such a tidy bow. You know everything. So that's good on the one hand because you know where everyone is and you're not left wondering, but it's also got nothing left. I'm not wondering what's happening with these characters after I leave this book. It's all in there and that's it, and I'm moving on. So the characters haven't really stuck with me in a way that some of the other books that he's written have. I have all of these questions about the characters in some of his other books and how they are doing, but with this one, I'm happy with where they're at and I'm moving on. So depending on your taste in books, you're going to either view that as a pro or a con or a neutral. So that's why it's in my neutrals. So overall, I enjoyed my experience while reading this. I enjoyed seeing all the different connections between the different characters, but the way that it's written kept me from fully investing in this story. So I had like a mixed experience with this one, which is strange because I love Fredrik Backman's books usually. I think overall this is one of my lesser favorite books by him, so I think I'm gonna give it like 3.5, 4 stars. I think if you like those types of stories where the characters are all thrown together and then you start learning all the different connections, you'll enjoy this, but I don't know if I would recommend this book first to start off with if you're going to give Fredrik Backman a shot. But I did enjoy my reading experience. It's just not one of my favorite Backman novels. Take that as you will. So that's my review on Anxious People by Fredrik Backman. If you liked it, please give it a big thumbs up and comment down below if you've read this book. Have you read anything else by Fredrik Backman? Let me know what your favorite book by him is. Anything else you want me to know, leave it down below and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye. Nookie, say bye. Say bye. Good boy.